Good morning. Thank you for joining me for this update about the City of Jacksonville's COVID-19 response. I'm going to provide a brief update, then turn it over for some questions. Joining me for the question and answer today is Sheriff Mike Williams, Deputy Chief Administrative Officer Stephanie Birch, Fire Chief Keith Powers, and Emergency Operations Center Director Steve Woodard. As of this morning, the Florida Department of Health is reporting a cumulative total of 1,072 COVID-19 cases in Duval County, 142 hospitalizations, and 26 deaths. We've conducted over 27,000 tests in Duval County, and our percent of positive continues to trend downward at 3.9% today. I want to provide a quick update on COVID-19 mortgage, rent, and utility program that kicked off last Friday. In less than 24 hours, we successfully scheduled 40,000 appointments to provide $1,000 in relief to citizens in need. Those appointments started this morning and will continue over the next couple of weeks. We've already processed over 500 applicants who left with relief funds in hand. When you come to your scheduled appointment, you must bring your confirmation number with you as well as your ID and documents. Visit coj.net/relief program for more information. As a reminder, please do not show up on site without a confirmation number. You'll be turned away. Right now, all appointments are full. If openings become available, my team will be contacting people individually to reschedule them. Deputy CAO Birch is here to answer questions when we get to that part in the Q&A. Just a moment, kind of a glimpse into all families are experiencing some version of this. When I was leaving the house this morning, one of my daughters, Bridget, was on the computer virtually learning, and she said, "Daddy, am I going back to school in the fall?" And I said, "I think so. I hope so. We don't know." She said, "Can you promise me I'm going back to school in the fall?" And it's just an example of what kids are going through, what family members, there's still uncertainty as we move to reopen. Just wanted to communicate that we're all in this together and we're doing everything we can to get everybody back to a sense of normalcy. It's been 58 days since I declared a state of emergency for Duval County, and today we start phase 1 towards safely and responsibly reopening our city. While we are reopening limited parts of our economy and community today with restrictions, high-risk populations such as the elderly and immune compromised should practice self-isolation for the time being. I appreciate the sacrifices the people of Jacksonville have made over the last 2 months. The steps we're taking together are keeping our community and neighbors safe. For those returning to work, I encourage you to stay safe and be responsible. Continue to social distance from others when possible and wear a mask. Suggest that you wear a mask. Wash and sanitize your hands frequently and avoid touching your face. Currently, my work from home order remains in effect, so if you can work from home, work from home. I ask employers and employees to continue working together to find available work at home solutions. Starting today, restaurants can reopen with social distancing and mitigation measures in place. Indoor seating is limited to 25% of building capacity. Outdoor diners must be at least 6 feet apart from other parties, and party sizes must be limited to 10 or less. Retail businesses can also reopen today with restrictions. They too are limited to 25% of their building capacity and are encouraged to adhere to social distancing and CDC guidelines. Restrictions on hotels and lodging were lifted this morning, allowing them to resume accepting reservations as normal. Hotel management and staff should follow CDC guidelines and review guidance from the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, which is available at coj.net/recovery resources. However, please note that the prohibition on vacation rentals remains in effect under the governor's statewide order. Also, in partnership with beaches mayors Latham, Glasser, and Brown, we lifted time restrictions at Duval County beaches this morning. However, social distancing and activity restrictions still apply. Recreation activities consistent with social distancing, walking, biking, running, swimming, and surfing are allowed. At this time, I am currently working with the beaches mayors on lifting the remaining restrictions, and we will have more information on that in the days ahead. Cooperation from the public is crucial and it will allow for the continual gradual easing of restrictions. Right now, under the statewide governor's order, gyms and personal care services such as hair salons Nail salons, massage, and other services with prolonged person-to-person contact remain closed. However, I understand these businesses need to get back to work. I spoke to the governor this weekend. He understands that. He held a roundtable over the weekend in Orange County with these types of businesses. He's consulting with healthcare professionals and working towards a goal to be able to safely reopen those businesses. When he gets to that point, he will lift that order, and we will follow, obviously, the governor's lead. These steps we are taking today are the first of many toward reopening Jacksonville. Throughout this process, we'll continue to closely monitor the data and coordinate with the governor and his team on next steps. If we continue to act responsibly and follow the restrictions and guidance in place, I'm confident we'll move forward to phase 2 quickly. Before we go to questions, a few reminders. Everyone is under some level of stress because of this pandemic. Remember to be kind to one another. Everybody's experiencing, whatever their circumstance, some level of unusual stress. We'll get through this together. If you want to be tested for COVID-19, a list of available testing locations is available at coj.net/COVID testing, COVID-19 testing. We'll continue to update this page as we increase our testing capabilities in the next few weeks. And I want to continue to encourage people at 7 o'clock tonight, call somebody and connect with them, listen to them, and share with them. And of course, if you need help, there are many resources. Please visit coj.net/recovery resources, where my team is frequently updating a list of resources available, such as social services, financial relief, mental health counseling, trauma support, and disaster loans. With that, we'll take questions, and we'll start with Jim with WJXT.
Mayor, I'm sitting outside the main library where a lot of people's in line for the stimulus money right now, and it appears to be going quite well with few problems. But there have been some with people that's saying that their addresses have already been used. And I understand the concern is with apartment complexes that that's the problem there. Has that been addressed, and what are we doing for those people? You know, they thought they had appointments, but they never got a confirmation number. How's that being handled?
Yeah, so Stephanie Birch is on the line. I'll have her answer that question.
Sure, thank you, Mayor. So Jim, what we're doing in that instance is when they are showing up on site, we're taking down their name and phone number. And if an appointment becomes available at some point, we will call them and let them know when they can come in. Our security measures on site are working well. And what that means is that there have been some people who have come through the line and have not been able to meet the eligibility criteria, so they have been disqualified. There have been people who have been coming in from outside of Duval County who maybe entered in an address that maybe they lived at a long time ago in order to get into the system. But when we're checking the documentation on site, they are not able to qualify for the criteria. So there are appointments opening up, and as that happens, we will reach out to the people we have on our list in order to try to get them in.
Megan with Action News.
So just to be clear, are there issues with apartment complexes, people who live in apartments getting appointments? My other question is, how many people did not have the right paperwork or had to be turned away because they didn't qualify? And then will there be extra help for people who needed extra help with the website issues? I apologize for there.
Stephanie, I'll let you take those questions.
Sure. So for right now, we don't have exact numbers for people who have been disqualified. I can certainly get that, we can get that number later today once we're done with everything. So I don't have exact numbers right now, but I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember all three of your questions. But for the apartment complex issue, there's been a few administrative challenges with that. But like I said, our security measures are working well on site, where we're able to, there have been people who have been disqualified for not meeting the criteria. So that part is working well, our intake process. And then I believe your third question, I'm not sure. I'm so sorry.
Hey, sorry again. So is there, like you said, there's something about administrative issues with apartment complexes. So are there issues with people trying to apply with their address and someone took their address, like already applied under their address?
So there have been a few challenges with that today. We've seen a few people who have shown up with what they thought was an appointment, but that's why we're saying we need to make sure everybody has an actual confirmation number when they come for their appointment. The good thing is that our intake process is working well. The line is moving well. We've given out over $500,000 at this point to people who meet the eligibility criteria, have been through the process, and you know, have done everything the way that we anticipated they would do it.
And I'm grateful that the team has set this process up. The goal was to get money in people's hands that need it as quickly as possible. And the idea that that's happening today, and it's going to keep happening, is what the people of Jacksonville needed and need. Courtney with Action News.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor. I have a question for you. So today we know that even more businesses have the opportunity to open, like our stores. So my question is, are you working with state and even federal lawmakers and considering legislation that would carve out some type of liability exemption for businesses as people were going to start heading out more to brick and mortar stores?
At this point, I've not had any personal discussions with any legislators on that issue. And I don't know that, Director Woodard, I don't know that you have either, but you want to weigh in?
Now, obviously, there are going to be some challenges as we start to reopen these businesses, and we'll work closely with the private sector in any way that we can.
Zach with WJXT.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. We've been talking to restaurants this morning. Most are very excited to be reopening their dining rooms today. My question for you this afternoon is, have you heard from restaurants? Do you have numbers when it comes to restaurants reopening or not reopening because of the pandemic? And will you and your family be going out this evening for dinner to dine into a restaurant?
I don't know the numbers of who's open and who hasn't. Certainly, you know, I would say if a restaurant owner that personally doesn't feel comfortable opening at this point, obviously it's a free country. They shouldn't open if they're not comfortable with it. The governor and my team would not have announced 25% opening capacity if we weren't where we needed to be in phase one, and based on judgment and data, didn't believe it could be done in a safe way. I have no problem going to a restaurant and dining. I'm sure we will in the near term. We won't tonight because we've got a refrigerator full of food, and my wife asked me this morning what I wanted for dinner tonight. But perfectly comfortable with going, and we'll probably be going in short order. Mike with the Daily Record.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, Mayor. Two questions. What benchmarks would you have to see in order to lift your work from home, if you can, executive order? And what's your timeline for possibly lifting that restriction? And then the second has to do with city offices. Last week you said that there were some budgetary implications for reopening city offices. Will those offices open back up to the public in May? And is there a firm date, and will there be any capacity measures that you'll be looking at?
I don't have an answer on the work from home order. I consider it literally daily. I do foresee us getting to a point where the order is lifted, and the recommendation is to recommend that people work from home if they can. And businesses that I've talked to largely will do that they want to do that for their employees. Stephanie, I'll let you take the second part of the question.
Yeah, as far as city offices are concerned, we're still working on that plan.
Sky, WJCT.
Hey, Mayor, just wanted to ask, last week you had talked about potentially tailoring some extra openings for businesses and just talking with the governor and seeing what you could coordinate. Was wondering if you could be any more specific with that. Was that having to do with those personal care services that you discussed just a little bit ago?
Well, I think it's everything's on the table. You know, do we get to more open up more occupancy sooner rather than later? Not yet, but we are under the statewide order. But the point is, we're collaborating with the governor, and the possibility for that exists as we watch our numbers decline. At this time, we remain consistent with the governor's order, and we'll continue to reevaluate. As it relates to salons and gyms, you know, the governor and his team are in consultation with industry experts and healthcare professionals in a way to get those open as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. And I know he wants to get it done. That's why he did a roundtable this weekend. He just wants to make sure he does it safe, and Jacksonville will follow suit. Jim with WJXT.
Mary, you know, with the popularity of the stimulus program and it filling up first day, have you thought about extending this, allowing more people to do this? And since there does appear to be some problems with people who thought they had appointments and didn't, will they be able to get that money if they qualify?
Jim, the immediate goal is to work through the appointments we have and the available funds we have as quickly as possible, which is happening today and in the days ahead, and we'll reassess at that time. Courtney with Action News.
Yes, Mayor Curry, just regarding the beaches, I know a lot of people are excited about hours being 6A to 8P today. Some might want to know what benchmarks need to happen. When will you consider lifting the rest of the restrictions?
Well, at this point, it's not about benchmarks as it is about mitigating the risk and crowd control. I've been in, again, regular discussions with the beaches mayors all through the weekend, and it's based on judgment, determining how to navigate an opening, the ability to sunbathe, the ability to have families come together and congregate just within their space, and to prevent strangers from being in dense situations together in groups of more than 10. So we're discussing how we can use law enforcement, Jack's Fire and Rescue to help manage those crowds. And when I say manage those crowds, we're not talking about arresting people. We're not talking about fining people. Those options are certainly on the table if someone is behaving out of control, but simply to remind people that we need to be socially distant and to not gather in groups of 10 or more. So we're evaluating that daily, and I'd say we're getting close to lifting the restrictions on what you can do on the beach. David with the Times-Union.
A follow-up, Mayor, in terms of the beaches, if what it has been like in terms of compliance, how you would gauge it so far, and if there has been any need to enforce that. And a second question I have is in terms of testing, if y'all can speak to what the goal is for capacity, if there's some way you can measure in terms of if y'all want to be able to test a certain % of Duval County's population on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, in order to be able to feel like you're doing enough testing and have enough capacity out there. Thank you.
Yeah, the beaches, people have been behaving responsibly, exercising their freedoms in a way that respects their neighbors on the beach, remaining socially distant and continuing to move by and large. There's always a few outliers. And so that gives us a level of confidence that as we move to lifting the restrictions that we can also manage that. As of, I think, a week or two ago, I had referenced a Harvard study that said how many cases per 100,000, how much testing per 100,000 per day. And I don't have that number off the top of my head, but based on that Harvard study, we had already met that. And since then, we've announced the federal dollars that we're going to use to expand testing. We've also added additional clinics since then. Walmart's added clinics. So we're moving, have been testing aggressively and continue to move towards more aggressive testing. Last question, Marilyn with WJXT.
Hello, I have a question for JSO. We wanted to know if you guys could confirm if someone was killed in the shooting that took place yesterday in the 2100 block of Brooklyn Road. Hello.
The question's not coming through.
Can I throw it in the chat really quickly? Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay, my apologies. I'm not sure what happened there.
All right.
No, my question is for JSO. We wanted to know if you guys could confirm if there was someone killed in the shooting, and we were trying to get an update on the search for the suspect and the role that the shot spotters played in the shooting.
Sheriff, could you hear that question?
I think I got most of it. In terms of a shooting incident that occurred over the weekend, yes, we're still looking for the suspects, and we're following leads that we're getting from the community. And a shot spotter plays a significant role in those investigations in terms of not only alerting us, but being able to pull some of the forensics out of the data that we capture from that. All that helps us, again, get to those suspects quicker, gives us better evidence to obviously prosecute those cases. So I think that's what I got from the question.
All right, thank you. And again, I know with restaurants, retail going back at 25%, people having the ability to work from home, there's a lot of businesses starting to get back up and running. Understanding that, again, I understand that personal care services, gyms, hair salons are ready to open and move. They need to get back to work. And right now, under a statewide order, they didn't reopen today, but know that the governor and his team are working aggressively with industry experts and healthcare professionals to get you back to work and up and running as soon as possible. And I will continue to collaborate with him in his office. I'll have another conversation with them this afternoon, this evening, about those specific businesses as well. Thank you.